You know, when we talk about gender, it's easy to think it's all about our private lives, our personal identities, self-expression, things like that. But what if I told you that some of the most intense political battles today aren't being fought in parliaments, but on our very own bodies? Let's get into it.
So, is gender just a personal choice? I mean, we're often told it's this personal journey of self-discovery, right? But if it's really that personal, why do so many powerful institutions seem to have such a strong opinion about it? Think about this. I mean, just think about it. Who gets to control reproduction? That question is being fought over in courts and parliaments all over the world. It's a massive political struggle, and the battlefield is the body. Or what about this one? Who has to cover their body in public? Again, this isn't just about personal style or fashion. We're talking about laws, social pressure, and ideas about public morality. It's another political battleground. And this one really gets to the heart of state power. How our bodies are defined and categorized can literally determine whether we're seen as a citizen who needs protection or a threat that needs to be controlled. So all these questions lead to one central, crucial idea. The body is never just biological. It is a political field. It's a space where power, law, and social norms are constantly clashing. And understanding how that happens is absolutely key to understanding politics today. Okay, so if the body is a political field, how do we even begin to analyze it? Well, we can start with a few key thinkers who gave us the intellectual tools to see exactly how power operates directly on our bodies. Our first guide is the French philosopher Michel Foucault. Now, before Foucault, most people thought of power as something a king or a state just has, like a weapon they can use. But Foucault showed us that power is way more subtle. It's something that flows through all of society, often in ways we don't even notice. See, Foucault argued that modern power isn't about a king yelling no. It works by creating knowledge, by defining what's considered normal versus abnormal, healthy versus sick. It doesn't just punish us for stepping out of line. It actively produces the kind of people it wants us to be. And where does all this happen? Literally everywhere. The hospital defines what a healthy body is. The school teaches us how to sit, stand, and behave properly. The courts, the workplace, even the border. None of these institutions are neutral. They are all actively shaping our bodies and our behaviors to fit certain expectations. All right, next up we have Judith Butler, who takes these ideas from Foucault and zooms right in on the question of gender. Butler gives us this really powerful concept called gender performativity. Now, this is super important. It's not a performance, like an actor on a stage choosing a role. It's more like we're reciting lines from a script we've been handed without even realizing it. Butler argues that gender is produced by the thousands of tiny, repeated actions that social norms compel us to do every single day. It only feels natural because we're forced to repeat it over and over and over. Okay, so we've got norms and institutions, but let's add another really critical layer to our analysis: money and labor. Because gender isn't just about how we act, it's also about work. Thinkers in the Marxist and socialist feminist tradition, like Silvia Federici and Tithi Bhattacharya, argue that you absolutely cannot separate gender from the economic system. For them, the way we organize labor is fundamentally tied to how we construct gender. They call this social reproduction. This is all of that essential and often invisible work that creates and sustains life. We're talking about the cooking, the cleaning, the childcare, the emotional support. It's the work that makes all other paid work possible. It's basically the hidden engine of our economy, yet it's so often devalued and treated like it isn't real work at all. Okay, so we have our theoretical tools from Foucault, Butler, and Marxist feminists. Now, let's put them to work and see how they help us understand some of the most intense political battles of our time.
When you look at issues like abortion, debates over wearing the hijab, or the fight for trans rights, they might seem totally separate, but they're not. They are all, at their core, part of the same fundamental struggle. They all boil down to one single political question. Who has the authority to define and control the body? Is it the individual, the state, religion, or medicine?
And that is exactly why these issues become so central for authoritarian and nationalist movements. By regulating gender roles, by defining what a family is, and by controlling bodies, these movements assert control over the entire social order. Women's bodies can become symbols of the nation, and anyone who challenges those norms is seen as a threat.
So let's just put it all together. Each of these perspectives gives us a different piece of the puzzle. The liberal lens sees a battle for individual rights and equality. The Foucauldian lens focuses on how institutions discipline our bodies. The Butlerian lens shows us how social norms create our very identities, and the Marxist lens reveals a whole system of labor. None of them is the whole story, but together, they show us just how much is really at stake.
The biggest takeaway here is that our conventional idea of what politics is, well, it's way too narrow. The most important political struggles aren't just happening in government buildings. Politics happens right here, in the clinic, the classroom, and the home. The street is a political space. The border is a political space. Heck, even the public bathroom can become a site of intense political struggle. So, ultimately, what does this all mean? It means gender isn't political because of some abstract theory. It becomes political the moment our bodies are subjected to law, organized into labor, judged by morality, and forced to fight for the right to simply be recognized and exist. And that leaves us with this final thought. We tend to think of political territory as land or borders drawn on a map. But maybe the most contested, most important territory of all is the human body itself. What does it mean if the lines drawn on our bodies are just as consequential as the lines drawn on any map?
We're going to look at it through the lens of reproduction, labor, and the politics of control. So let's just dive right in. You know, when we hear the word abortion, our minds pretty much instantly jump to a few familiar battlegrounds, right? Is this about morals? Is it about religion? Or is it purely a legal question for the courts to decide? These are the debates we see playing out over and over again. But what if we set those frames aside for a moment? What if we looked at this whole thing as an issue of power, of labor, and of economics? From this point of view, the debate isn't just about what's right or wrong. It's really about who controls the fundamental decisions that shape our society. And that reframes the entire conflict, doesn't it? It really boils everything down to one single, incredibly powerful question. Who actually has authority over reproduction? So, who governs the pregnant body? Is it the individual person? Is it the state? Is it religious institutions? What about medical professionals? Or even the family unit? As you can see, there are a lot of different forces, all vying for control here. To really make sense of these competing claims, we need to look at a couple of different frameworks. And we'll start with the one that's probably the most familiar to all of us, the lens of individual rights. So, the liberal perspective approaches this whole issue using the language of rights. You'll definitely recognize these core ideas: bodily autonomy, the right to privacy, and of course, the freedom of choice. From this viewpoint, restricting abortion is seen as a direct political limit on a person's ability to control their own body and plan their own future. But that's just one way to see it. There's a whole other way to analyze this, one that looks beyond just individual rights, and instead focuses on the very structure of society itself. And this framework sees reproduction as a form of labor. And this is where a concept called social reproduction theory comes in, and it's incredibly useful. It basically argues that for our economic system to keep running, it needs a constant supply of, well, people, workers. And creating and raising those people requires an enormous amount of work, right? Childbirth, caregiving, maintaining a home, all of it. Historically, this work has been unpaid, it's been overwhelmingly assigned to women, and it's often framed as just a natural duty, not as essential labor. This theory makes all of that hidden work visible. So let's just compare these two views for a second. The liberal view, as we said, focuses on individual rights and bodily autonomy. But the Marxist feminist view, it shifts the focus entirely to social and economic control, specifically the control over reproductive labor. And this brings up totally different questions like who is expected to do this labor and under what conditions? Okay, so this isn't just some abstract academic theory. It has very, very real consequences. Because when access to abortion is restricted, the burden of all that reproductive labor, it doesn't fall on everyone equally, not even close. And that leads to some really critical questions. Who gets forced into motherhood? Who actually has the resources, the healthcare, the childcare, the housing, to make a genuine choice? When you get right down to it, who can actually afford reproductive freedom? The stakes here are truly global. According to the World Health Organization, a staggering 45%, almost half, of all abortions performed worldwide are unsafe. And the WHO is really clear on this. Restricting access doesn't stop abortions, it just makes them more dangerous. Here in the United States, this inequality has become incredibly stark. Human Rights Watch found that in just the 2 years after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, prosecutors brought at least 412 criminal cases related to pregnancies. I mean, think about that. It means the pregnant body itself can become a site of legal surveillance and criminalization. And this inequality isn't just legal, it's also geographic. A study in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that after the Dobbs decision, travel times for abortion care from native lands shot up significantly. The burden, again and again, falls heaviest on those who are already marginalized: poor communities, indigenous communities, and people of color. So when you pull back and look at all of these different perspectives, you realize they all boil down to a fundamental debate about one of our most important values. What is freedom? What does it actually mean? And this is where you can really see the core conflict laid bare. For liberals, freedom is the right to choose. For many conservatives, it's about protecting unborn life and maintaining a certain moral order. But for Marxist feminists, freedom is something much more tangible. It's having real control over the material conditions of your life. Things like housing, fair wages, healthcare, and childcare. And this highlights such a crucial point. A law can be written to be formally equal, to apply to everyone on paper. but its actual impact is not equal at all. A person with money and resources can travel to get the care they need. A person without them is simply trapped. This is why it's so critical to look past abstract rights and focus on people's actual lived conditions. So we end with this powerful idea. Why does this debate stay so intense year after year? It's because it's not really about just one thing. Abortion is political because reproduction itself is political. And the real question at the heart of it all is this: who gets to control the future of the body, the family, labor, and life itself? Let's talk about the hijab. It's a symbol that's been so debated, so politicized, and honestly, so misunderstood. But what if the real story here isn't actually about the cloth itself? What if it's about who gets to control the body underneath it? Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and explore how the politics of the hijab is a really powerful global example of the state's claim over women's bodies. So think about this. In some parts of the world, women are facing legal bans for wearing the hijab. And in other parts, they're being arrested and punished for not wearing it. I mean, on the surface, these seem like total opposites, right? Forbidding it versus enforcing it. But what if there are actually two sides of the very same political coin? At first glance, yeah, it seems impossible. One policy seems to be all about secularism, the other about religious law. But what if both of them are really just expressions of the state claiming authority over how a woman's body can even appear in public? That's the provocative idea we're digging into today, that both these policies come from the same place, a state's desire to regulate and control women's visibility. And to really get our heads around this, we're going to zoom in on Iran's policy of compulsory hijab as a really detailed case study. It's here that you can see in such stark detail how the female body can be turned into this public canvas for projecting a state's idea of order, morality, and discipline. And we're not just talking about a slap on the wrist here. As you can see, we're talking about a massive system of control. It includes everything from digital surveillance and confiscating people's cars to fines, prison, and even the unbelievably brutal act of flogging. The scale of this operation is just staggering. I mean, look at all the state agencies involved, from the traffic police and courts all the way up to the Revolutionary Guards and even plainclothes agents. This isn't just one rogue group. This is the entire state machine working together to police women's bodies. So, how does a system this huge actually work in daily life? To really get a handle on it, the ideas of the philosopher Michel Foucault give us an incredibly powerful way to look at it, through the lens of surveillance and discipline. You see, the real goal here isn't just to punish someone after they break a rule. No, it's to create what Foucault called a disciplinary space. Public life itself, the street you're walking on, the car you're driving, your social media feed, all of it becomes this field of constant surveillance. Women are forced to become their own guards, to constantly police themselves because they know they are always being watched. But here's the thing, that very system of control is also where incredible resistance is born. The tragic death of Masha Amini and morality police custody back in September 2022 was the spark that ignited the Woman, Life, Freedom uprising. And that slogan itself is revolutionary. It directly connects a woman's body, her life, her freedom, to the political struggle of an entire nation. But this uprising, this powerful demand for life and freedom, isn't just about political symbols. It's deeply, deeply tied to economic survival. And to understand that crucial link, we need to kind of switch gears and look at this through a Marxist feminist lens. Because when a state controls how women can appear, it also controls their access to opportunity. So the really crucial question becomes, who gets to get an education? Who gets to enter the workforce, to earn a living, to have any shot at economic independence? And ultimately, who is constantly exposed to punishment and financial ruin just for trying to live their life? And right here is where you see the brutal intersection of patriarchy and class. Controlling women's bodies isn't just about morality. It's about regulating their access to public life and economic power. For poorer women, the consequences of not complying, losing a job, getting a fine they can't possibly afford are devastating. It's a mechanism that ensures their economic vulnerability, reinforcing a social order that keeps them dependent and disempowered. Okay, so as we unpack all this, it is absolutely critical to add another layer of complexity. Because when Western voices critique compulsory hijab, there's a real danger of falling into old harmful patterns of Islamophobia or of casting themselves as saviors of Muslim women. This isn't about rescuing anyone. It's about recognizing that Iranian women are leading their own fight for liberation on their own terms. And this quote just captures the heart of it perfectly. See, the fundamental issue isn't the hijab itself. It is compulsion. Whether a woman is forced to wear it or forbidden from wearing it, the problem is exactly the same. An external power has claimed authority over her body. So if the core issue really is compulsion, what does that compulsion do? How does it police who gets seen as a proper or legitimate person in society? Well, to get to the heart of that question, the work of philosopher Judith Butler is incredibly helpful. Butler talks about something called public recognizability, which is basically the way our bodies are read and understood based on social norms. In a system of compulsory hijab, a woman who appears with her hair uncovered isn't just making a personal choice. No, she's immediately read as a sign of moral decay, of political disorder, a direct threat to the entire system. And that, right there, is precisely where its power comes from. The simple act of unveiling becomes this profound act of defiance. And it's so powerful because it exposes just how fragile the whole political system is that has to put so much effort into controlling her. I mean, think about it. What does it say about a state's power when it has to mobilize its police, its courts, and its entire surveillance network just to control how a woman wears her hair? It says that that woman's body isn't some minor political issue. It is absolutely central to the state's very claim to authority. So in the end, the politics of the hijab is never, ever just about a piece of cloth. It's about a much deeper, more fundamental question. Who gets to decide what a woman's body means? Who has the power to turn her into a symbol of morality, of the nation, or through her own powerful defiance, a symbol of resistance? So, transgender rights. It's got to be one of the most fiercely debated political issues of our time. I mean, it pops up everywhere, right? In our courts, our schools, our hospitals, and definitely in our elections. So let's really get into it, because to understand any of this, we really need to cut through all the noise. You know, when you see this play out in public, it often gets boiled down to these two competing sets of slogans. On one side, you hear about dignity, recognition, and safety. And on the other, you hear about biological sex and protecting certain spaces. It feels incredibly polarized, almost like two sides just shouting past one another. But here's the thing. If we really want to understand what's going on, we have to slow down. We've got to push past the slogans and start looking at the deep, really complex questions that are hiding underneath. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this explainer. So, here's our game plan. We're going to start by getting beyond those slogans and digging into the key theories of recognition that really form the foundation for trans rights. Then we'll fairly examine the critiques of gender identity before trying to reframe this whole thing as a conflict of vulnerability. After that, we'll look at some real-world flashpoints in law and medicine, and finally, we'll bring it all back to the very human questions that are at the absolute heart of all this. Okay, so first up, theories of recognition. To really get a grip on the political claims being made, you first have to understand the thinking behind them. Okay, so a huge name you need to know here is the philosopher Judith Butler. And Butler's core idea is, well, it's pretty radical. The argument is that gender isn't some fixed inner thing you're just born with. Instead, think of it like learning a language. We don't invent the rules of grammar, right? We learn them by repeating what we hear and by having other people understand and recognize what we say. Butler says gender is kind of the same deal. It gets produced through all our repeated actions, our language, and how society recognizes us. It's less about who you are deep down and way more about how society sees you and puts you in a box. So this way of thinking completely reframes the question. It's no longer what is a woman. Instead, it becomes who gets to be recognized as a woman by our laws, our doctors, our whole culture. And of course, the same goes for men. Who gets recognized as a man? Who has to constantly prove their identity? And who gets to just, well, be? Society is always policing these lines, whether we realize it or not. Which brings us to the really critical question here. Who is denied recognition? Because being denied that social acceptance isn't just about hurt feelings. No, it has very, very real consequences. And right here, you see why this isn't just some academic debate. We're not just talking about symbols here. Being misrecognized or not recognized at all can literally affect your ability to get a job, find a place to live, see a doctor, or even have an ID that matches who you are. The stakes are material. They're about your wallet, your health, your safety. For a lot of trans people, this is a matter of basic survival. Okay, but that's just one side of the coin. There's a really significant critique of this way of thinking, especially from some feminist thinkers who argue that we can't forget about sex-based categories. And to get the full picture, we absolutely have to understand this argument on its own terms. So you have thinkers like Kathleen Stock, and her argument is basically this. Gender identity is a real thing, absolutely, but biological sex is also a real thing that remains incredibly significant, both socially and politically. The point here is that sex and gender identity are two different things, and in certain specific situations, think healthcare, or women's shelters or prisons, that difference really, really matters. The core of this argument really boils down to history and biology. It's that the oppression of women, historically, has been tied directly to female bodies, to things like menstruation, pregnancy, childbirth, and a vulnerability to certain kinds of violence. So the worry is that if sex as a legal category gets totally replaced by gender identity, it might accidentally weaken legal protections that were specifically designed for women as a distinct biological group. So what you start to see is that this isn't really a simple right versus wrong situation. It's much better understood as a clash between two very different and very deeply felt claims about who is vulnerable and who needs protection. And this really gets to the heart of it. On one side, you have this powerful argument that sex-based spaces and protections are vital because women's oppression is real, material, and connected to their bodies. On the other side, you have an equally powerful argument that excluding trans people makes them intensely vulnerable to real harm, humiliation, and violence. See? Both sides are making a claim about safety. Both are rooted in a deep sense of vulnerability. So, what's the takeaway? Well, theory doesn't give us an easy answer here. But what it does give us is a much smarter toolkit for asking questions. When we look at a specific conflict, say over a bathroom policy at a school, we can ask, okay, what kind of place are we even talking about? What is the actual risk here? Who is the most vulnerable person in this specific situation? And are we actually trying to balance everyone's rights, or are we just picking a fight? Okay, so let's take all this theory and see where it actually hits the ground in the real world, especially in law and in medicine, where these fights are happening right now. Right, first up, the UK's Cass review on gender services for young people. This thing made it huge waves. Basically, it found there were major gaps in the evidence for medical treatments like puberty blockers. It recommended a more cautious, all-around approach that includes way more mental health support. So, some people saw this as a much-needed evidence-based course correction, while others saw it as just another way to put up roadblocks to care. And the legal battles, they are just as fiery. In the UK, the Supreme Court ruled that the word sex in their main equality law means biological sex, which has kicked off huge fights over single-sex spaces. And in the US, you've seen a wave of states passing laws that restrict gender-affirming care for kids and police which bathrooms students can use. The consequences of these fights are real and they are immediate. Okay, let's zoom out for a second. Let's pull back from all the specific laws and medical debates. Because beyond all the abstractions, what is this really all about? I mean, when you peel back the layers, you see this isn't just about identity. It's about how we classify people. It's about what our laws are for. It's about the ethics of medicine and how we share public space and who is seen as vulnerable. And maybe most of all, it's about who gets the power to define reality itself. And maybe this is the most important point of all, because behind every single theory, every court case, and every political slogan, there are just people. People who are just trying to live their lives with a little bit of dignity and safety. It's so easy to turn people into abstract concepts, but we have to fight that. Trans people are not just symbols in some culture war. Women who are worried about safety are not just reactionaries. And young people who are struggling with who they are not political props for either side to use. They are all human beings. And all of this leaves us wrestling with a massive, massive question. How can we, as a society, recognize that people's bodies are different and protect everyone who's vulnerable, while also refusing to let the government or corporations or just plain moral panic decide whose body and whose life counts as real? That's the fundamental challenge here for all of us.